Hey guys, welcome back to the CNSL Season 7. Here we are continuing in the round of 16 Group B. This is the winner's match. It's going to be between Mihu and Saber, both of them getting what might be considered like minor upsets in those best of ones, but don't worry, everything else now going to be best of threes. We're going to be doing this whole Terran vs. Zerg match here today. So prepare yourselves, Mihu versus Saber, a rivalry from earlier when they played each other in the China-Korea Invitational. Let's see if the results can change. We're going into map number 1 on Citadel. In the bottom left, we have none other than Saber. And in the top right, we have Mihu. So some of you hardcore ArtosisCasts watchers may remember the match between Mihu and Saber. Okay, this one I got a lot of complaints over, but some people really liked it as well. It was a 9-game series, and Mihu went 8-1, if I'm recalling correctly, against Saber. It got pretty bad by the end, and it felt like he was almost given a game to Saber at the very end. And, you know, people sometimes, you know, I'll go out and I'll get a match that's something like a 9-game series, and then people will complain like it was one-sided towards the end. And the thing is, guys, you have to know, I never know the results, ever. I don't cast stuff I know the results of. If I ever do, and there's been one game because I wanted to show a specific strategy, I let people know in the beginning. So I literally never know if it's going to be quality games, if it's going to be a close series. Sometimes someone will say, you should cast this because it's good, and I'll definitely take that advice and cast it if it's a game that I haven't seen. So that does happen. But yeah, I never really know for a series, and honestly don't want to know. I think it would kind of ruin the cast, ruin the suspense for everyone. But yeah, looking back at that, Mihu absolutely dominated Saber the last time we had these two play on this channel, at least. And that wasn't too long ago either, right? That was in the last 6 months or so. But Saber has gotten a lot better. Saber looked fantastic in his round of 32 group, although he only got here via Piano retiring. Even though he had Ruin dead at the end. That was the best game from the round of 32, by the way. That Group H final map, if you haven't watched that between Ruin and Saber, literally one of the best games I've ever cast. Amazing game. Loved it to death. Anyways, Saber looks so much stronger than he did back then. So I'm excited. I actually, looking at this, I think Saber is going to be able to take out Mihu. I really do. Like, we saw how well he played there against Scan. Scan seemed like, you know, maybe a little bit off. The Mutila's Craftsman did a little bit too much against him. Maybe needed another turret or something like that to help out. But it did not work, and that's unfortunate for Scan. But yeah, I think Saber is really on top of his game nowadays. So let's see how this goes down. Mihu trying to get that drone kill. Not going to quite be able to get it. Going to go ahead and make his command center, though. Looking down at Saber's base. Yeah, the layer gets started. That's a very, very, very fast layer. And Mihu, of course, sees exactly what time that's at. 2:52. That's a pretty common time. Generally, a more aggressive Mutalisk play will come out of that. Oftentimes with speed. Oftentimes with a third base out on the map. So Mihu, and this is perfect, okay? Second barracks, notice no third depot, okay? He's going to go gas next. He's making a third marine, a fourth marine. Oh, let's see. Is he going to gas as well? Okay, so this is going to be Mihu doing an early 2 barracks academy rush. I don't believe he'll make another marine here. He starts another marine. It's crazy. He's going to have to skip an SCV, or more than an SCV. So he's going to get his academy started here in just a second, and there it is. A little bit later on that, moving across with 4 Marines right now. There are 4 Lings out, Ling speed on the way. So basically, Mihu scouting this said the same thing in his head that I said to you guys. Oh, this will probably be a third hatchery at a third base, right? That's very common. In fact, we saw that from Saber in the previous game. If you get your layer that quickly, it's a more aggressive play, and you can afford making a hatchery another base, but there are risks in that. And Mihu is really pushing to punish that right now. So his SCV count isn't going to be quite as high as it normally is. And we'll see when he starts his missile turrets. You'll be able to kind of read into that a little bit, but maybe his pressure on the map will allow him to start him later. But he's skipped like probably about 2 SCVs here to be able to make extra Marines. Okay, normally this push out would be 2 medics and 8 Marines. Here, he's actually going to have 9 Marines. And this, you know, you might look at that and say, it's 1 Marine difference. Yeah, exactly. It's 1 Marine difference. That's actually a big deal. And he's going to have these medics out. He'll probably make a couple fire bats afterwards. What does Saber go for here? I'm kind of anticipating, like, are you just going to try to pump your mutas out? Mihu has to go right now. Like, there is no time for anything. He needs to get out on the map if he wants this to work. And he's being a little bit slow about it. Okay, a scan just went down. Scans the natural. He sees a normal drone count. And so he scanned that to try to see, are there going to be a lot of lings? And there are ways you can trick Terran. If you bring drones from here to here while you make lings, a lot of good Terran players will be caught off guard by that. And it is something we see at the pro level sometimes, but definitely on the ladder a lot. Anyways, the Marines are trying to move out. It doesn't look like he's going to be able to pressure this base. So even though Mihu got the extra Marine, even though he sacrificed a little bit of his economy, you know, he's not able to really do very much. He did not force sunken colonies. He did not pressure this base. So the actual opener, who did better on the opener? It goes to Saber. Absolutely goes to Saber. Now, that's not to say Mihu's dead in any way. There's so much play in this position, right? Like, anything could happen still, for sure. But as far as those little tiny back and forth games that I was trying to describe, Saber comes out on top. The Marines just kind of standing in a forward position. He has that range upgrade on the way, and Mihu's going into 4 barracks. So this is a very heavy Marine medic play. Very similar to what Scan did, but Scan's build was better, okay? But this map is a little bit better for defense against mutas. Can you see the difference? Right? You can't really go back here, so you're harassing from this side, and the front just has kind of a bunker there. Pretty normal stuff, right? So it's like a much easier to defend location. Now, Scan's build had the very fast +1. This has a slow +1. It's still a 4 barracks pressure. The difference was that Mihu went for the early 2 racks academy, which is safer, but also sometimes can do things like force sunkens or extra lings. He was unable to do either of those, so you can unequivocally look at this as Scan's opener was better, but yeah, that doesn't mean that Mihu still can't make something happen where Scan could not. So Saber right now mining from that 3rd base, getting lots of gas. Couple scans go down from Mihu, just checking what the actual production is. And the production is still mutas. So as soon as the scan goes away, he starts a Hydralisk Den. Or in fact, well, I guess that was, the scans were technically still up, but he throws this down. So he knows right now that Mihu's like, oh, you're just going mutas. So I can just really rail in the Marines, get as many Marines as is possible, and push out. So he's getting ready for those lurkers. Also, his Queen's Nest did get started in time here, so that he's not going to be afraid of a tank push. Saber really playing a beautiful game right now. Still trying to get a little bit of harass off onto these Marines. Some pretty good volleys there. Kills off a few Marines. Doesn't lose a muta yet. A couple Marines were trying to come around for this base. Ooh, tried to target that muta down 1 health remaining. Factory is finished. Another scan just went down there, and he actually does scan this location. So he guesses correctly. That is the most likely location for Saber to have expanded. So Mihu scans, figures out what's going on, and Saber jumps upon the army. Oh my god, he's going to get the medics as well. Very good engage here from Saber. Saber going to dive into this main base, go after these missile turrets a little bit. And he's going to be able to eliminate the missile turrets. He's actually getting on top of the Marines. Now, he's trying a similar move to what we saw against Scan, but he hadn't done the work to reduce the Marine medic count as much. He killed the 1 group, but you saw against Scan, he killed the 1 group, but then he also flew in and killed bunches of Marines at the natural many, many times, which allowed him to do that killing move against Scan. Here, he hadn't done that. So Mihu actually had enough Marines to then push the mutas off, and now a lot of mutas have fallen. So, like, I don't think that that was that good of a move. Like, he's trading out quite a few of his mutas. It's okay. You can trade some mutas out. You know, you have the 3 bases up. You're getting into your other tech. We have Hive coming up. Evolution Chamber. More macro hatcheries are going to come as well, as he does have a pretty healthy drone count. Mihu right now continuing to pump out those SCVs. 45 really, really healthy. Science facility coming up. He has his first siege tank. But I don't think that, like, Basically, I think if Mihu's going to win this game, it's probably going to be a pretty long one. Like, you're not going to have any window with the siege tank. The siege tank might just be a safety precaution. Like, if you... Here's one thing, okay? So if you have some build like this where you go like 7-minute factory and you're going 4 barracks, marine medic, and you go science vessel, and you make a couple siege tanks, you don't die to anything. Like, you will live into a macro game. But, the siege tanks may not be very effective. So if you are spending, you know, the 50 gas and minerals, the 300 minerals and 200 gas on the tanks, and then the 150 on siege mode, right? You could have been going for additional science vessels. You could have been going dropships and things like that. So if your opponent just has consume and just stalls out your siege tanks, a lot of times you look at that and say, oh gosh, I'm a bit behind here, right? The siege tanks just aren't giving me any value. I've spent a bunch of gas on them, so on and so forth, right? So that's kind of the place that we're looking at here. Already, we have lurkers coming up. Now, if he didn't go for these siege tanks and wasn't out front already, this is what I was talking about. If you don't have these siege tanks, you might be dead right now because the lurker contain won't let you out and they'll rally out defilers and you'll be in trouble. But he has the siege tanks. He's going to be able to push out of this area. The game is going to go on for Mihu. Like, this is, like, honestly, like, I do things like this as well very often. It's just, if you've lost a lot of Marines against the mutas, I actually think that this is the right play. And he did lose a fair amount of Marines. But yeah, if you lose a lot of Marines against those mutas, if they get the containment up and you don't have siege tanks, Marines can literally never break this. It would take like 200 Marines to break that. So you get the siege tanks, you push them out, and you say, okay, I am a bit behind, but let's see what I can do. So a Radiate comes down, he sieges those tanks, he's going to push these lurkers out. Actually, a little bit surprised to utilize siege mode. I feel like that is a good situation for Pung Pung mode, as they call it in Korea. You know, the non-siege mode situation. By the way, I think he just killed his own turret. It's actually good play once the Mutalisk phase is over to kill your own turrets so that you have better room for building a better Sim City for quicker macro. It can actually be really hard to fit all your buildings where you want them. See? So he takes that down and just sets this up so you can just really quickly macro out your Marines. Okay, now, he's coming down. He hasn't lost a vessel yet. Notice that the Defiler's already out here. Already has consume. And the siege tanks just aren't able to do too much. They did push back everything in the beginning. But now with the Dark Swarms, Mihu just kind of has to retreat a little bit. You know, it's not that the siege tanks will do 0, but they're definitely not giving you the value of what you spent on them for that portion of the game, other than making you not be dead right now, which is, I guess, ultimate value in a way if you look at it like that. We can look and see that it's Melee and Carapace coming up, so we know what Saber is up to. Saber is going to go into Ultralisks eventually as opposed to Hydralisks. Of course, you can't tell that as Terran. You kind of have to feel around, see what they're making, and eventually what happens is you'll see a Hydralisk that has the speed upgrade, and then you'll know. You'll be like, oh, it is Hydra Lurker Defiler, and then you want to go Heavy Siege Tank. Now, against Ultras, Heavy Siege Tank doesn't do well unless you're literally on mech, right? Like, if you're on mech, yes, siege tanks will counter Ultralisks, but if you're not, you don't have the right number, and then Dark Swarm plus Ultralisk will crush everything. So against this, generally, you're going to have to focus heavily on upgrades for Mihu, and of course, the science vessels will be useful. You know, switching into battle cruisers. Battle cruisers are fantastic against that. We'll see what he does. You know, you can just go like vessels only, though, if you want. I don't think we'll see another siege tank this game. A lot of fire bats being mixed in. I love to see that. You know, we've had a lot of casts on this channel where I've been talking about this new fire bat meta. We're seeing more and more fire bats. As you kind of clear out the Mutalisks, fire bats become more and more powerful because all these comps are just relying on Dark Storm. They're relying on Zerglings and things like that. So the fire bats can be really super strong. I'd love to see Mihu doing that. Like, look, see, he gets these Zerglings on there. If you have 3 fire bats, you just kill all that instantly. Obviously, he doesn't have it yet. This was his first group that moved out. This is about as early as you'll generally see Firebats getting added in, other than an initial couple for Zerglings. You know, on the defensive oftentimes. But yeah, he does have those Firebats out now. But here's the problem. Saber has his 4th base. Let's take a look at Saber's macro. Look at this. Macro hatches. Good anti-drop. Excellent anti-drop. Which, by the way, dropships are on the way here, so it's going to be like maybe 3 dropships coming out. Mihu does have some good scouting. 3rd base coming up. Okay. We don't have an Ultralisk Cavern yet. Oh, we do have an Ultralisk Cavern somewhere. Where is it? There it is. Okay, so Ultra's Cavern is up. It's going to be a minute before we get Ultras. He's going to want Chitinous Plating and Speed well on the way, and then he'll probably switch into it. But he has the 4th gas. And on 4 gas against Marine Medic type of plays, like we call this SK Terran. There was a different Terran player known as Sulky that was using this a lot back in the day, so I guess it got named after him. Anyways, and that's not the Sulky that we normally cast and watch. But yeah, the 4 gas allows both Ultralisks in great numbers and Defilers to be produced, whereas 3 gas does not. Okay, so right now I really like the position of Saber, but Mihu's flying in with 4 dropships. Let's see what he gets done with his 4. Now, he actually does a moving unload, so even though he loses a dropship, it only loses 4 units that were in there, so not so bad. Plague goes down immediately. Double Lurker over here. Lings and Mutas. Oh my god, that's getting cleared so quickly right now. This is so painful. Can Mihu still get anything done? It doesn't look like it. It looks like that's pretty much done. And he's losing some units out here. The drop did nothing. The drop did nothing. If Mihu were to win from here, it would be absolutely amazing. It would be shocking. Because this is a gigantically winning position for Zerg. The fact that he has those 4 bases, the 4 dropship was kind of like the last Hail Mary to get some damage to shut down a base, and he wasn't able to do it. Saber's drop defense has been immaculate. He's done everything this game super, super well. You can see that, right, the initial siege tanks, yeah, they got him out of the containment and made the game move on. The dropships maybe a little bit slow. The vessel count maybe a little bit low. These are all things attributable to going for those siege tanks. And, you know, it's a tough situation. It's a tough situation for Mihu, and he's definitely in trouble. Let's take a look at the upgrades. He does have +2 attacks, so that's huge. Okay, +2 plays against +4 very well. Just, it's equal is what I'm trying to say, not very well. You really got to look for who has the additional upgrade. But when you combine the Ultras with the Defilers, basically if that shows up at any base, the base is gone. Or at minimum has to be lifted. And if you do not have map control against Ultras, you are in a terrible, terrible spot. Mihu continuing to macro well. He's spending his money well. He has a lot of units. His SCV count is awesome. 81 SCVs. In fact, it's too much. You could be mid-60s, and that would be enough. On 4 base, even. But yeah, he's running out of these mineral patches. This is actually something very common to Mihu. He gets more SCVs than pretty much every pro other than last. He's mostly inactive now anyways. But yeah, he's like one of the top SCV producers in the world. And that makes him mine out his bases really quickly, which is like, okay, great, he got all this money, but like he doesn't have anywhere to send all these SCVs, right? Like what do you need SCVs here? 30 for really great saturation, and he's got like an extra 50-ish SCVs that are going to be sitting around. He's going to go ahead and set them up long distance mining, but this is a game where, like, look at this. Saber is just sending units everywhere right now. He's continuing with great upgrades. He's macroing out really strongly on his Ultras. Tons of links coming. He's got the extra macro hatches down. Everything looking very rough for our Terran player here. This is a best of 3. So again, not end of the world if Mihu loses this game to Saber. Lots of SCVs left over. Yeah, he's dead, honestly. Like, it's just... this position is a well-known position. Okay. Yeah, that's going to be it. GG. Game number 1 goes to Saber. All right, so going into game number 2 here. Saber in the top right, and we have Mihu here in the bottom right. This is Blitz Y, 2-player map, so maybe gonna fare a little bit better for Mihu. I think that there's maybe like a slightly wider range of things you might be able to do here as Mihu. You know, on these bigger 4-player maps. You can't time out things like a fast barracks quite as well because you don't know maybe their cross spawn. You don't know which spawn position they're in. Also, like, you can't really split the map. There's not really situations where Terran can win split map against Zerg. Whereas a map like this, a much smaller map, like if the map does start to split, it's more playable for Terran because there's less ground that you need to kind of defend against the strong Zerg pushes, right? So like the third base area, you can kind of turtle it up and like block off this choke and kind of make yourself a little bit invulnerable on 3 bases. Whereas on the 4-player maps, all the bases are like kind of spread further apart, and Zerg can kind of show up and shut down bases a bit easier, if that makes sense. But yeah, you know, looking back at that first game, like Saber just played a really, really beautiful game. I don't think Mihu necessarily did things wrong. It looked like he was trying to open with a pressure, and he didn't really pressure. He didn't force any sunkens. He didn't force anything out of Saber. Saber got to do exactly what he wanted to do basically the entire game. And, you know, he even, like, overcommitted slightly on the Marines at the barracks, but it wasn't that big a deal. It did make Mihu feel like he needed to go into Siege Shanks, I think, which, you know, again, those Siege Shanks, it's like, it's not necessarily the end of the game. You can play like that, but it does make, like, the mid-game a little bit hard once Consume is out, right? Whereas if you really focused on, like, Science Vessel production, you might be able to do other things, get into dropships more quickly, maybe, right? Like, these are all considerations you need to take. Okay, like you'll never see like dropships first, for instance. It's garbage. You'll just get caught. It'll get destroyed. It doesn't add anything. So you really need 2 vessels, 4 vessels, 6 vessels before you do the dropships. And if that's all late, your opponent's more prepared. You know, it can be tough because Terran is like kind of a timing attack race. It's funny because there's this idea that, like, oh wow, like maxed out upgrade Terran or whatever is super strong, but actually like Zerg and Protoss both outscale Terran in that later portion of the game, right? Carriers for Protoss, and then just Dark Swarm for Zerg, just Defilers in general. Or if you're going mech, Queens, of course, just absolutely demolish mech nowadays. So like with Terran, you're kind of looking for openings to get damage done. So that's kind of the thing to keep an eye on here for Mihu. Can he hit any of these openings, whether it's with a quick siege tank push or whether it's with those dropships? Maybe he can find a sunken bus timing, right? Like these are the types of ways that you pick up victories in Terran versus Zerg. And because Zerg can die to that stuff, threatening to do it can put Zerg into harder positions where they aren't going to be able to deny later things as well. You know, I think it's such an interesting matchup because of that. Like any matchup against Zerg, like Zerg is such an interesting race just because they have to produce their drones out of the same larva count that they have to produce their Zerglings and their mutas and their everything, right? And that it makes it super, super interesting in the fact that pressure is almost more important than attacking. Like you have to act like you're attacking to get them to defend. The Zerg, like Zerg in theory, I think is the strongest, right? Like a lot of people agree with that as well. Like if you can do it just right, Zerg is unbelievable, but it's, you know, it's hard to do those things. So you have to put pressure on. And again, like in the previous game, we didn't see that pressure very successful from Mihu. Now his academy is about to finish, so he is going to have a couple of medics or a medic firebat, whatever he wants. That's going to be basically on time to pressure. Once again, Saber going for third base, you know, off to the side. This is so far away. I don't know that you can kill this with the type of build that Mihu's doing here. But he is getting the 2 medics. Once again, we're on those... this time it is actually going to be the 8 Marines, right? So he's actually up in SCV slightly from what we saw previously in that last game. Now, let's see what he does. Now, you're showing these speedlings purposefully. This is purposeful, right? Like, you want to see if there's a way in, you want to see what they have, what you have to make to defend, but also you want to show them that you can counterattack. So, see, he pushes him all the way out here. This is kind of a nice thing about this map. And now the Lings have to wait for the Marines to pass to go for your counterattack, and by then there's 2 units at home, right? So, actually, in fact, 3 units at home. The Lings continue, though, to dog this. I think he's looking at this and saying, yeah, I can't really do the counterattack right now. And he has forced a sunken. So already the pressure of this game from Mihu, quite a bit better than what we saw on Citadel in game number 1. Now the Mutalisks are almost out. This is probably the turnaround timing here for Mihu. He does not want to end up losing anything to those mutas. See, has he started his missile turrets yet? No. Oh, this is a new build. Okay. So I just saw this the other day as well. Royal Royal did this literally. Okay, so just so you guys know, I'm like casting these immediately as they come out. Okay, so like when they get played, I get the replays I cast. So people are asking about that. I do almost every game that you watch. If you watch it the day it comes out, it's been played within the last week. Okay, so anyways, this build is a Valkyrie Rush. It's very, very cool. So what he does is 2 racks Academy Pressure, skip range, skip +1, factory instead. So you get your factories started before your missile turrets. Now, what you'll do is you'll build extra missile turrets because you don't have as many Marines and you don't have range, and you go right up towards Valkyrie, and as you can afford them, you get range, and then you get +1. So notice the +1 is a lot later. The range is a lot later. But the range can be later because you're making more missile turrets. You're kind of sitting in here defensively. He needs to be careful about this, though, right? The Marines are not going to fare well against the Mutas if they actually have to fight without missile turrets around. So he starts another one. There's the armory. There's a starboard. This is so cool. He's really on top of the meta, man. Really on top. Like, I literally just saw this build yesterday. Awesome. Awesome. And I'm sure it's probably been floating around from some of the pros recently, but this is it's very exciting to see here. So range is now done. +1, of course, going to take a very, very long time. But his Valkyries are going to be out like really, really quickly. Now, Hydralis Den and Queen's Nest on the way. Of course, if you go for any sort of Valkyrie rush and they have lurkers out, it is a little bit of an annoyance. The Valks still have uses. They can help get drops in later. They can still, you know, repel the Mutas. The Mutas are still strong, right? The Mutas are still strong for a while. I mean, by the time you have like 1-1 and vessels out and stuff, generally the Mutas are just on anti-drop defense, but you can even utilize the Valks there. Now, is he supply blocked? Oh yeah, he was supply blocked there for a moment. So a little bit late on starting that Valkyrie. He is getting it though. The lurker upgrade already on the way. So I feel like Saber has already adjusted to this really, really well and really, really quickly. 4 barracks for Mihu, just macroing nicely. He's got a very good SCV count. What we will want to see from him, if we're going to have a chance of seeing another game, is a science facility pretty soon. You do definitely need to think about that and switching out of Valkyries, right? Because again, like, I think 2 is a very good number, and maybe after that he wants to go towards those science vessels, because as soon as you get them, Zerg has to be thinking about, well, either they're 100% all in and they're going to try to scourge them all and win with Mutas anyways, which is definitely not the case here, or they're going into lurkers. So it's got to be one or the other. So you need to be ready to switch. Now the Valk coming out, and look at this. Uses the Overlord to catch Valkyrie shots and then deals damage to it. Very, very common play. Lurkers are morphin. Does he have enough time? Oh my god. Oh my god. Does Mihu have a timing here? I think he just missed it. You know, you can't scan everything. You can't know everything going on. But if he had made a beeline for this, he might have been able to get something done. Oh, the sickest Mutaglaves there. Now another Valk comes up and will... it dealt some good damage to the Mutas, but you can see now 2 of them have fallen. A third one is being made. Science facility being made, but lurkers are out. We're going to get lurkers over here before he can get there as well. Defiler Mound coming up. Carapace on the way. And the Carapace is slower than the +1, so that's actually something kind of nice for Mihu. He's not going to have to worry about Ultras outscaling him or something with this later +1. Ooh. Misplay from Saber. You know, he sent his Mutas down the map. Maybe he wanted to do some harassment at the natural or something, but didn't realize where Mihu's Marines were. Mihu just kind of happens to catch them and kills quite a few of them. So that was a good moment for Mihu. Now, one thing we need to mention, right? Saber has done a good job here. He's picked off multiple Valks. He's kind of kept him back. He's got his lurkers up. He's got good defense on 3 bases. This is 2-player maps historically are very hard to take 4th bases on for Zerg. You generally don't have a good layout because there's not another main or natural that you can take leading to another very close base. On 2-player maps, you almost always have a 3rd that's kind of off by itself, and nothing else is easy to get, right? So like, where's another gas for him? Here, maybe? here maybe, get drops and go down here, right? Like that's hard. So the style that was kind of like developed to deal with this is adding multiple macro hatches in your main. I normally see 3. It looks like Saber's going for 2, but he's going to have to go very heavy units to push back the Terran army to secure a 4th base. That's going to probably be what we see. Oh. This actually might be something else as well. I'll talk about that now. Notice how he's getting Hydralisk range, okay? And I didn't actually notice if he got speed before. I don't believe that he did. Little drop comes off, trying to kill off the Nidus. There's so much action in this game that I'm having a hard time explaining what they're doing. But it looks like right now, Saber is going into Hydra Lurker Defiler. Now, there's 2 ways to play it. You can play a grindy macro game where you take more bases and you just never die. Or you can do a massive all-in with it, where you suddenly come out and you push so hard. And it's really hard to stop. We've actually seen, for instance, Sulky used that build to win a game to win his ASL in ASL Season 16, right? Like, it is a very, very strong all-in push. Yeah, and he actually, this is so smart. This is so smart, it's killing me. He got range for Hydralisks first, okay? I mentioned in the previous game, you saw that scan? Now, the 3 Hydras partially make you think this looks like it's a Hydra Lurker game, but you're not sure because he scanned and he didn't see speed. The speed upgrade is generally what gives away. Anytime you see Hydralisk speed, you know exactly what they're going for. You can start massing siege tanks, okay? Here he went range first, which disguises it because it's much harder to see the range upgrade than it is to see the speed upgrade. So a very cool, smart move. But Mihu knows what's going on. He knows what's going on. Let me show you. Right? Well, where's his factory? There it is. Already got the add-on. So he figured it out. He saw those 3 Hydras. He says, I don't believe this. This is a Hydra Lurker Defiler. So against Hydra Lurker Defiler, you need to get siege tanks. Unless you have like a huge tempo advantage and you feel like you can kill them, that's not going to be the case. We see, once again, Saber with excellent anti-drop defense. We see him coming out, lots of Defilers, Lurkers, Hydras, getting ready for another base, holding this position. So this is the most unkillable build that Zerg has. You can't really kill them. You have to kind of run them dry. There's no real push timing because like you have to go you have to go siege tanks, and like you can put Darkstorm over 1 Lurker and 1,500 siege tanks will not kill it. It does not matter how many you have. You will not be able to kill it. So it makes the game like long and turtly. So what you do is you get a huge siege tank line so they can't attack you, and then you can kind of move it forward and grind them down over time, depending on map and position of the game and everything. But yeah. Anyways, right now we have Saber moving across the map. He's starting to do a little bit of a push, looking if he can get some damage. Plague is a huge part of this strategy because Marine Medic is supposed to beat Hydra, but if you Plague it, it does not. They will one-shot, and they've got incredible range, speed, and microability. Now he comes up, and Mihu, just microing back. This is what you have to do. You just kind of continually kite. It is good to add a few fire bats in, because if you get the lurker count down low enough, like you get it down to 1-2 lurkers, you have 5 fire bats in there, suddenly they have to run away. It can happen, right? I like to see those fire bats in there. In fact, you can see suddenly he's making mass fire bats. Awesome, awesome, awesome to see. The siege tank production is continuing. He is getting the vehicle weapons, really important. Getting another add-on. It looks like he's just going to go 2 factory. You can go 2 factory or 3 factory with this. I've seen both from the pros. You can see another couple groups of Marines and Medics just kind of trying to slow and control the map a bit. Great Plague goes down. Burrows, everything's dead. You don't get a notification for the Plague, I'm pretty sure. It's funny that I don't know that, right? There's so much going on by the time that they're plaguing. I'm like, yeah. I don't think so. I don't think you get that. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Anyways, sieging up a little bit. You know, he's got this forward position. This is a little bit scary. Irradiating as he can. The combo of Plague plus Hydras with range, very good at zoning out the Science Vessels. The Science Vessel's not that useful against this type of style. In fact, I think that it's really good if you have Science Vessels against this, which you always have some, right? I think relying upon irradiates, like it's good to irradiate. It's not good to irradiate Hydras. It's actually actively bad. It's generally better just not to spend the irradiate, because what happens is if you irradiate a Hydra and you're kind of chasing them back, they turn it into an egg, and the egg doesn't take damage, and you can't run around it with your Bioforce because your Bioforce will die taking splash going around it because Bio has so little health. So that's what they do with it, and it's just like, it's almost it slows you down. But yeah, I actually really like Defense Matrix against this style. You put Defense Matrix on a few Fire Bats, and sometimes you can do amazing, amazing things against these pushes. Now, Mihu clears that, okay? He's taking his own 4th base with the 4th gas, but look at the amount of Hydro Lurker on his side of the map. This is getting really scary. His Bio Forces can't stand up to this many Lurkers, and the upgrades are fantastic here for Saber as well. Moving around, it looks like he might want to shut off this base from the rest of what Mihu has. Like, burrow some Lurkers here and then push in strongly and kill this base. That's actually a really smart move. Instead of, like, just punching into where the Siege Tanks are, he does run up the Lurkers. Oh, a little bit sloppy there. A little bit of an over commitment. But he's got another group ready to come in. So with this here, you can't really come in with more Marines and Medics. He is setting up some bunkers, but as a Defiler comes over, those will not help you. You can see those extra Fire Bats looking for damage where they can get it. Very good Siege Tank count, continues to grow. Really anyone's game still. Like right now, Saber, I like Saber's position. But that doesn't mean that he's going to make it work, right? Like if Mihu suddenly gets really cost efficient and clears all this, suddenly he's on 4 gases, making as many Siege Tanks and Vessels as he wants. Let's see what this attack can do. So just Marines in here. Doesn't even bother with any sort of, Dark Storm or anything. Finally, Dark Storm does go up. Some Irradiates went down there. And he's stuck in here. Remember these Lurkers? Look at that. Left them there. He comes in with Marines to try to help the SCVs get out. And actually uses SCVs to help the Marines to clear it. So, you know what? That was a pretty good move from Mihu. He ends up losing all the SCVs that were there, but he does clear the Lurkers at least. He is going to get the Bio out. He saves the Command Center, so maybe he can take it again later. We're going to have to see some of these Siege Tanks pulled down, I think. Right? Like, he needs to clear this. The fact that Saber is playing down on the bottom left of the map so much, very tough for Mihu to deal with. You can see, like, his Siege Tank defense is here, but the attack is down here. So Mihu a bit out of position. The idea for the map against this is to get your Siege Tanks going out here. Because if you can guard this area and this area, they have no way across the map without flying. So that's kind of the idea, but Saber just circumventing the initial defense that was there and dealing a huge amount of damage. Mihu losing a ton of his Bio. Some great Dark Storms go down, but he is going towards the Siege Tanks now, which might end up being a problem. Mihu getting his Irradiates down. It looks like we have 1 Defiler left in here that hasn't been irradiated. A little bit hard to see under the Dark Storm, but there it is. Does get an Irradiate down, so it looks like no more Dark Storms at least. More units coming down that left side of the map. You can see he's really trying to finish him through that area. 5th gas has been taken. Infinity money on the way. Yeah, you can see that Dark Storm. Like, the Siege Tanks, like, plaster stuff, but these are invincible, right? So you do have to pull back against them. So that is still annoying. This little group of Bio that was up there for a long time comes down, trying to get a bit of damage. Doesn't look like they'll get too much done. Finally, these are going to get cleared as well. The supply very similar at the moment. And it looks like Mihu really wants to retake this base, which he definitely needs to do. You can't be playing like this for too long. Triple Evo upgrades are going for Saber right now. So he's going for 3-3 on his ranged units and 1-3 on his Zerglings. Obviously, Zerglings, Ultras, and stuff, you eventually can start making those again with this type of composition when you start getting this type of lead that Saber has. And I got to tell you, it does still look very good to Saber for me, right? For Saber, to me, rather. This push got cleared. That's really good. He's starting to get his Siege Tanks across. Does he have enough to do that? Okay, he's going to get a couple Defiler kills here. This is really good. Really good that he cleared that. What we need to see from Mihu is a defense across here, right? Blitz Y is the thinnest map, so this is one map where I feel like I was saying, Terran has more late game options here, right? And that's because you can actually siege the whole thing. If he sieges the whole thing, like, we can get into so many different positions. We could have just massive Dark Storm lines going up. We could get drops involved. He might even switch into Queens to try to combat the Siege Tanks. That's a possibility. There's a lot of things that can happen. I hope Mihu's able to do that. Unfortunately, right now, these two lurkers still causing some trouble. He sent a vessel so he can actually irradiate them both. A little bit wasteful. Trying to chase down with those irradiates a little bit. Maybe a bit too hard. I think it's always better to keep those back, keep them alive, and you can see the combination of Plague plus Hydra's super strong. He picks off a ton of these vessels. Oh, man. Very, very tough situation here. You know, Saber, like, he's up in supply now as well. Mihu he needs him to kind of, like, attack poorly into the siege tanks multiple times. Now, those are some good irradiates and some very good kiting here as well. Some Ling's going to kill off 3 siege tanks, maybe. Oh, only get 2. They only get 2. Still, though, looks like he will end up popping some of these lurkers. In case you were wondering, like, maybe some of these were irradiated. But, like, if stuff is really close to each other, basically the shot misses is what happens under Dark Swarm. But if you look where the animation is, occasionally it could be on top of something like a lurker and deal damage to it while it's underground. Right? That's why they still deal some damage under Dark Storm, because it's a misplaced. It's a miss, but the splash can deal damage. That's why I always say a single lurker is invincible under the Dark Storm. But yeah, looks like another push there from Saber. He can be a bit cost inefficient with these, because as he pushes us back, Mihu has less and less recourse. Mihu still unable to mine from this bottom left, but he has plenty of gas. He's mined out. He's mined out. He's floated that command center over. Looks like Saber pushing in here once again. He's really trying to get the kill before Mihu can completely secure his bottom part of the map, right? If you have 20 tanks across here, it looks a lot different than if you have 7, 8, 9, 10, which is what we've seen Mihu basically playing with here. And look at that. Man, they just barely get under there. They're going to stop mining here. They're going to kill tanks. They're going to force that bio back. Mihu's position continues to weaken. And this really looks like it's going to be a Saber victory. A very likely 2-0 here. There's no real comeback from this spot. Let's be real. Ultra's even on the way right now. There's just so much money that Saber has. He's able to kind of do anything that he wants at this point. Another Dark Storm goes down. Can't quite clear these. And the siege tank count is down to a measly 6, 24 minutes into the game. Mihu trying to hold on, trying to make something happen still. Of course, he knows that there's no real chance. But the Chinese pros never, ever give up. They play till the very bitter end. But does look like some excellent play here from Saber. You know, someone who didn't make it in, got his spot via another player retiring. And he's just finishing off Mihu now. He's actually going to be the very first player to qualify for the round of 8. What a story. And don't forget, right? Like we talked about at the beginning of this, Mihu with that crazy like 8-1 win against Saber like 6 months ago. And you can see that Saber has just improved in leaps and bounds. Wouldn't be surprised if this is a guy that we end up seeing in ASL in the next couple of years. Like really, I mean, honestly, tell me what you think, but he's really looking great in these games. Some pretty flawless Zerg versus Terrans here today. This has to be it. Mihu's going to GG. Look, he's not mining. Ultra's coming up. GG. And that means that Saber going to be advancing to that round of 8. A big congratulations to him. Of course, Mihu goes to the losers match, or the final match, rather. Sorry. Our next match, next time will be Scan versus Leda. Guys, thanks for watching.